We're coming on the air tonight with the first look at Kamala Harris's first major interview as the candidate atop the Democratic ticket. How she's defending her shifting policies, why she's now saying her values have not changed. Then, the growing number of people in the Midwest killed by the West Nile virus. That's also leaving a teenager paralyzed as cities across the country fight against not one but two deadly, dangerous mosquito-borne illnesses. And why the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students wants his trial moved some 300 miles away from where those murders happened. Why Bryan Kohberger's defense is pointing to a mob mentality against him. Plus, we're going one-on-one with the record-holding astronaut who spent more time in space than any other American. What he says about the astronauts stuck there now. Then the growing criticism over legacy admissions as more states look to ban that practice. We've got the latest installment of our American Dream series later in the show. Hey, I'm Christine in for Hallie, and we're just getting our first look of Kamala Harris's first major interview as a presidential candidate. CNN releasing this clip in the last half hour or so where Dana Bash asks her why her positions on key issues have changed. Watch.
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and, by extension, the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
She's also telling CNN she'll appoint a Republican to her cabinet if she's elected in November, using this interview to begin to fill out what a Harris presidency would look like. It comes as she campaigns through Georgia, trying to pull in votes from deep red areas. Let's bring in Mike Memoli, who is traveling with Harris in Georgia. How'd she do? She's coming off an electric convention, polls showing her gaining steam in battleground states. Obviously, they're trying to ride this momentum. Now she's opening herself up to this interview. Does that present a risk for her?
Well, absolutely. And Christine, the longer you wait to do an interview, the more it raises the stakes, the more it puts a spotlight on the interview that you do. And so we're all going to be parsing what she said in that question about her changing policy positions, essentially arguing that because you campaign one way, but then you govern another way. You were able to lean, in this case, on her time in the Biden administration, and one of their most hard-fought legislative accomplishments for dealing with that question about maybe why she has changed from supporting the Green New Deal. I also think it's interesting, Christine, what part of the interview that the Harris campaign is already highlighting, which is that pledge to potentially appoint a Republican to her cabinet. That speaks to the efforts at coalition building that they need to do to continue to have a winning formula in a place, especially like Georgia, which has been a Republican stronghold in the presidential battlegrounds. I would also point out, Christine, Vice President Harris, if she is president, might have to pick a Republican because we know how close the math is in the Senate, and Republicans have a very real chance of winning a majority in the Senate. So this is the beginning of what we'll obviously hear more of tonight when CNN plays that full interview.
We know she's going to have to try to turn all these good vibes that she's been receiving into votes, of course. We know next week she's hinted at maybe filling out her economic plan a little bit. I've been told by some of her aides that you can expect to hear more about the care economy in the days ahead. What do we expect in terms of more detail from this campaign?
Yeah, she made a little bit of news separate from this interview today as she was focusing on the issue of the economy on this bus tour that she's been on over the last 2 days. Yesterday was more of a meet and greet atmosphere for the stops that she made with Governor Walz, but as she was visiting one of 2 small businesses today, she did lay out a potential new policy initiative that she could provide more detail on next week. Take a listen to how she put it.
So what I'm going to be rolling out next week is basically a tax credit for startups, for small businesses who are starting out.
Yes.
Half of America's working population either owns, runs, or works in a small business. I mean, when we think about strengthening the economy as a whole,
not to mention really investing in like the ambition and the dreams.
So that's an indication of what her agenda will be, and when she takes the stage here behind me any moment, when she does, she's going to be comparing that to what she is going to call the dark and dangerous vision of Trump and Project 2025, Christine.
And Mike, we're also getting some new polling in showing razor-thin margins in key Sunbelt states. Walk us through what these numbers are saying and what you're hearing from voters there on the ground.
Well, I'll focus on Georgia since that's where we are to start. Look at that. Vice President Harris leading now, Donald Trump 50-48. We were talking about a different poll yesterday taken before the convention that showed Donald Trump actually leading here by 4 points. So different polls, different methodologies, but it does show what might be the beginning of a post-convention bounce that has the campaign feeling that they can push the envelope. Governor Walz, after joining the vice president here in Georgia, has already made his way to North Carolina, where the ticket is still trailing, but they have high confidence that they can potentially pick that state up, which Trump won 4 years ago.
All right, Mike Memley, sounds like they're getting fired up behind you, so we'll let you get back to watching that. Thank you so much. Nice to see you. We're also just getting a major update from Donald Trump, talking to our Dasha Burns on abortion rights in just the last hour. So listen.
In Florida, the state that you are a resident of, there's an abortion-related amendment on the ballot to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6-week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
These new comments from Mr. Trump as he's zeroing in on the Midwest tonight, holding a town hall in Battleground, Wisconsin, his first major event since the controversial incident at Arlington National Cemetery. We're just getting new details on. An Army spokesperson tells NBC News an aide to the former president, quote, abruptly pushed an Arlington Cemetery employee aside when that aide tried to film content inside an area where service members were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan and where they're buried. Now, Trump's campaign says the Army is lying, adding, in his words, as someone who was there, this employee was the one who initiated physical contact that was unwarranted and unnecessary. Let's bring in Vaughn Hilliard, who's traveling with the Trump campaign. Let's start with Trump's comments on abortion access. What more are we learning from what he's saying on this issue that has a whole lot of voters really care about this and divides the Republican Party?
Right, Christine. His comments there in just the last hour to Dasha are notable because he has avoided answering specifically the question about what week limit does he believe there should be an abortion ban at. He has repeatedly said that he is proud that he appointed Supreme Court justices, nominated Supreme Court justices, who ultimately overturned Roe v. Wade and sent the decision back down to the states. But ever since, he has avoided answering specifically what type of state legislation does he support. And that's where this Florida measure, because he is now a resident of Palm Beach, Florida, there is a measure on the state ballot in Florida this November, which would codify protections for reproductive rights up to 24 weeks. It was Governor Ron DeSantis that signed that 6-week ban 1 year ago. And so Dasha's question was whether he will vote this November to protect abortion rights up to 24 weeks. And as you heard him just say there, suggesting that he would vote to increase the week ban beyond 6 weeks. And if we were to take him at his word, the one vote that he has the opportunity to vote for is that 24-week ban. So I think that you can extrapolate from his comments to Dasha that he intends to vote yes on that measure in Florida, which I think would lead to many critics among especially the evangelical right, those individuals who are against abortion rights and applauded the overturning of Roe v. Wade and would even like to see a federal ban on it. So I think the fact that he is saying that he would vote for what would amount to 24 weeks of protection for women in Florida, I think is notable coming out of here.
Yeah. Vaughn, let's talk about this Arlington incident. I mean, for any other politician, it would be significant, you know, being at odds with the Army and Arlington Cemetery employee over filming a campaign TikTok video, you know, on such hallowed ground. But these standards don't seem to apply to the former president here. Is his campaign, are they worried at all? How are they casting this?
they've been quick to respond and push back against the storyline. And one of the co-campaign managers for Donald Trump even tweeted at the Army after a Twitter account after they released that statement from a spokesperson saying that they supported and defended the Arlington National Cemetery official who came forward and made the allegation that they were pushed by one of these Trump campaign aides there at Arlington National Cemetery. And you'll go back to that very initial statement from a Trump campaign press secretary, Stephen Chung, in which he suggested that that cemetery official had a mental crisis. And of course, what you're seeing here is the Army coming out in defense of their official and defending them from that criticism and saying that they stood by the official and defended their actions there that day, and the fact that they believe that the official was acting properly and was simply trying to make sure that the campaign was abiding by the rules that have long been in place in Section 60 in this particular part of Arlington National Cemetery, and avoiding having a campaign try to use for their political purposes video or photos taking to further a political cause.
All right, Von Hill, nice to see you. I know you got to get back to your reporting there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, my friend.
In just the last couple of hours, we learned from Wisconsin officials that 2 people died of West Nile virus in that state, and 1 more is in the hospital. Nearby in Missouri, a teen paralyzed by the virus. 18-year-old John Proctor started feeling sick earlier this month, and after a few trips to the ER, things became more serious. Proctor's parents say they saw their son having stroke-like symptoms, slurred speech, unable to raise his arms or smile. He was later diagnosed with the virus and is now paralyzed from the neck down and on a ventilator to help him breathe. But doctors say these complications are quite rare. On the East Coast, cities spraying pesticide treatments to reduce the spread of dangerous mosquito-borne diseases, West Nile and EEE. Maura Barrett joins me now. Maura, what more can you tell us about these deaths in Wisconsin?
Well, Christine, I was on a call with the Wisconsin Department of Health earlier today, and while they advised that this is scary, this is not something they normally see this high of a peak this early in this season, they do experience West Nile virus year over year. But for comparison's sake, last year, for example, they saw about 18 cases in Wisconsin, but now there's already those 2 reported deaths and several reported cases. And so that's something that officials are taking very seriously. The CDC advises that right now, the last week of August, going into the first week of September, right around Labor Day weekend, is prime time for concern for infection from these mosquitoes, because it's the hottest point of summer, the most humid point of summer. And so if you look at that map again, if you take a zoom out outside of Wisconsin, this is usually more of a problem in the summer in the central part of the state, as you can see in the plains. But you can see that West Nile virus is affecting a large swath of the United States. The other colors you see there are triple E, which is Eastern equine encephalitis. It's another mosquito-borne illness. And so this is something that is affecting a lot of people, as you highlighted, across the country. But it's something to make sure that you're cognizant about as you're going into your Labor Day weekend and making sure you're staying protected so you can prevent something like this.
I mean, these aren't the typical symptoms associated with West Nile virus. It's quite concerning because this is a young, otherwise healthy boy.
Right. And this was a very unique case. I think that's important to highlight. It took Proctor several weeks to get his diagnosis, which is likely why he's experiencing these severe symptoms now. A large majority of people who have West Nile are asymptomatic. You're not going to have symptoms. If you do, they're likely going to be more flu-like, headache, fever, body ache, that kind of thing. The point where it gets concerning, doctors say, is if you're having neurological symptoms. If you experience confusion or dizziness, that's when you want to go to the doctor. In Proctor's case, though, his doctor and his father are telling us that they're very optimistic about his recovery, but it is a long road ahead. I want you to hear a little bit from his father about his journey going forward.
It's going to be a marathon of intense therapy and rehab. They've told me it could take 1 year to 2 years.
Now, this is a very scary thing. It's important to stay vigilant when you're going out into the holiday weekend. It's important to recognize that human-caused climate change has a connection here. We're seeing an increase in temperature on average, an increase in humidity on average. So that's why we're seeing an increase in mosquito days. More than 16 days a year we've seen in the last 40 years. And so that's why experts and officials are really warning people to stay safe when they go outside and be cognizant of the conditions when they're doing so, and really lather on that bug spray.
Yeah,
Christine.
long sleeves, long pants, bug spray if you can. All right, Maura Barrett, thank you so much. The Labor Day travel rush is officially underway, with millions of Americans already on the road and in the skies ahead of the weekend. Experts say lower fuel costs driving a 10% increase in getaways this weekend, with today and tomorrow set to be the busiest days at airports. Overall, 22.8 million seats are booked on flights. That's over a 2% rise from the same week last year, and 86% of folks are headed somewhere within the U.S. And it might not be the best weather for getting around in some spots. The South still facing heat alerts, and the Midwest in for some severe storms starting tomorrow. We've got meteorologist Angie Lastman standing by on that. But first, I want to go to Priscilla Thompson at the Houston airport. Priscilla, we're over 4 years out from the pandemic. Inflation's still really nagging people. But this notion of revenge travel, taking trips lost because of COVID and the spending trends of folks not cutting back on their trips, it seems like travel's alive and well. Are we seeing the end of this trend, or is the travel bug here to stay?
I'm with you, Christine. It seems like it's alive and well, and that bug may be here to stay. We are ending a red-hot summer of travel with this Labor Day holiday. And just to give you some context in terms of the numbers that we're seeing, tourists in Europe spent a record $869 billion to date so far this year. And keep in mind, we still have several months to go before the year is out. So that gives you a sense that people are booking those flights and they are spending that money to take travel and to enjoy travel. And I'm being told that airfare rates are still very low as we head into the winter holidays. So I'm sure there are lots of folks out there already eyeing those winter escapes as well. Christine?
We're hearing about record crowds. We know that gas prices are lower today than they were a year ago. So that's fueling the day trips or the driving trips. What's it like where you are?
Yes, all of that. And so here at the airport in Houston, we saw really long lines this morning. So far, it has been smooth sailing. But we do know that there are millions of people taking to the roads, taking to the skies throughout this holiday weekend across the country. We had an opportunity to talk to some travelers here who described their experience leaving on Thursday today. Take a listen to what they had to say.
Good, all good. Very easy so far.
Awesome. Are you expecting that the whole way through?
I hope so. I'll try to be positive about it.
That's great.
It's been good. We have TSA, so it's going to be quick.
So no problem.
No problem.
All right. And so lots of good things going on here, but we have seen some hiccups over the past 24 hours. That severe turbulence that caused that flight to make an emergency landing in Memphis as it was on its way to Chicago. One person taken to the hospital, 6 people injured, but thankfully all 182 people who were on board that flight are expected to be okay. There was also some issues overnight in the Denver airport where there was a train that was taking folks between terminals that stopped working, and so we saw massive crowds there. Earlier today in Florida, there was a baggage claim that had to be shut down. And so, the rule of caution in this holiday weekend travel is to leave early and expect delays. But of course, try to have a good time because we are enjoying the end of summer, right, Christine?
Absolutely. Last big weekend of the summer. Priscilla Thompson, thanks so much. I want to bring in Angie now. Angie, where might the weather cause trouble with travel this weekend?
Yeah, Christine, we've got a couple of spots, especially for those really busy travel days that you just heard Priscilla talking about. Let's focus on tomorrow first. We've got a cold front that's draped from basically the Great Lakes down to portions of the southern plains. And those are some of the spots that we're going to watch for potentially heavy rainfall, maybe some delays with airports. We could see some strong to even severe storms developing as the day goes on. So when it comes to airports, Chicago, St. Louis, Houston, those are the spots that we're really concerned for the likely delays. But we, of course, could see some trouble across parts of the southeast, even Detroit. So we'll be watching for the thunderstorm threat as well as the flooding threat. That flooding going to be problematic, and the thunderstorms likely on the roads too. So I-10 along the Gulf Coast, that's where we'll watch for the heavy rain. I-55 and I-44 across parts of the Midwest. Those are some spots that you'll want to watch there. If we fast forward to Monday, the next busy travel day, we've got most of that activity focused across parts of the Gulf Coast. So still a front kind of sitting around. Flash flooding will be possible. We'll see the potential for some strong storms from Texas to the Carolinas. And again, delays for Tampa and Houston. This is going to be something that we watch over the next couple of days, Christine. So still some trouble spots across that region.
All right, Angie Lastman, thank you so much, Angie. But the FBI under fire today after a Justice Department watchdog blasted the Bureau for failing to protect sexually abused children. It's mandatory that the FBI take action immediately, including alerting the other authorities to prevent abuse in these cases. But in this new Inspector General report, there was no evidence that happened in nearly half the cases they looked at. Improved policies were supposed to be implemented after another damning report 3 years ago that found the agency botched the case against Team USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar, allowing him to prey on victims for months. The FBI responded to the report in a statement reading, "It's committed to maintaining the public's trust by implementing necessary improvements." But in a written response to the audit itself, the Bureau appeared to downplay the findings. They suggested most of it had to do with paperwork violations. That's something the report refutes. NBC's Sarah Fitzpatrick joins me now with more on her reporting on this. Sarah, break down for us the details of this report. How many cases did they look at, and how exactly is the FBI accused of failing these children?
So investigators looked at a small sample of about 327 cases out of 4,000 cases that the FBI had opened over a 2-year period. And in 42 cases, the investigators themselves immediately reached out to the FBI and said that there were actions that needed to be taken immediately to protect children and prevent crimes. So that just gives you a sense of kind of the major deficiencies that they saw in quite a few of these cases. And in about half the cases they looked at, the FBI failed to alert state and local authorities or take just basic investigative steps. And there were catastrophic consequences to those failures. In the report, we see that there are multiple cases mentioned where children continued to be abused for over a year while the FBI failed to act. And in some cases, there were new victims that were abused, all of which could have been prevented if the FBI itself followed the law.
So the FBI was supposed to have overhauled, right, the way that it handles reporting these cases. Are they taking accountability here?
So the FBI has said that they plan to make improvements, implement new trainings, put in some guardrails about how many cases people can be on anyone's desk at one time. But I think in terms of accountability, we didn't really hear any of that. There was no discussion in this report or in any of the briefings today of charges or disciplinary actions for those FBI employees who failed to act. Although the FBI did say that they referred instances to the FBI itself for review, but we have not heard anything about accountability.
But, you know, after the Larry Nassar report, FBI Director Chris Wray assured the public that this wouldn't happen again. So could we see action from Congress? Where does this go from here?
It's not clear yet. So I spoke to members of Congress today who were really, frankly, stunned at the findings in this report and just how it can be possible that 8 years after the Nassar scandal, this is still such a problem. Senator Dick Durbin has said that he plans to hold a hearing this fall, and so I think we can expect to hear some major questions and perhaps requests for documents to see a bigger and more full picture. But as of yet, the FBI did not indicate that anyone is losing their job.
All right, Sarah Fitzpatrick, thank you so much for that. Coming up, why safety concerns for the suspect in those Idaho college murders may mean the trial moves hundreds of miles away, how the defense is trying to make their case. Plus, pending home sales hit a record low, what that means for you if you're looking to buy or sell. Now to a major hearing today with a judge set to decide whether the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students can get a fair trial in the county where it allegedly happened. Bryan Kohberger was at the hearing today. You can see him here. His defense attorneys are requesting the trial be moved 300 miles away from where the murders took place, saying intense media interest and a, quote, mob mentality against him would be a problem. Now, prosecutors argue the trial should not be moved, saying it would be inconvenient for the families and for the witnesses. Kohberger is charged with the murder of 4 University of Idaho students at an off-campus apartment house, actually, in November of 2022. Dana Griffin is joining us now. This is just such a terrible case, a terrible story. And I understand we just heard from one of the victims' families. What did they say?
Yeah, we just heard from the parents of Kaylee Gonzalez. They spoke outside of court during lunch. They want to keep this court in Latah County, saying that this is where the murders occurred and this is where the case should end. Listen to what her father said.
I trust this community to be fair and to go in there without their minds made up, and I don't think that's asking them too much. That's how you'd see the full 360 of the completion of justice. It started here and it ends here, and we can all just move on.
And they're also citing a financial and travel hardship because the parents already have to commute some 2 hours just to get to Latah County. If they were to move it, say, to Ada County, some 300 miles away, that's a 5-hour commute each way. And they said it would just create such a hardship for them. Christine?
You know, the defense team did a phone survey of local residents to try to prove their point. What are the key arguments that they're making?
So they say that extensive media coverage has potentially tainted a jury pool in Latah County, where there's some 40,000 residents. That's why they want to move it to Ada County, where you have a pool of some 500,000 residents. They say that they surveyed several residents via phone and found that 70% have already formed an opinion that Bryan Kohberger is guilty. And they said that even when they asked, or during this phone interview, they said that some of the residents told them if Kohberger is not convicted, quote, they'd burn the courthouse down, they would probably find and kill him, or there will likely be a riot and he wouldn't last long. So these are very concerning statements, and that's why they are arguing to move this to Ada County to try to get a fairer jury pool.
I mean,
Christine?
This is such a big case, though. The biggest, multiple murder cases in the nation right now. I mean, is there anywhere they could move where jurors wouldn't know Kohberger or this case?
Absolutely not. I mean, this case has garnered national attention, like you just mentioned. Even during the hearing today, they brought up several news reports, including national media, including NBC News, my interview with then Police Chief James Fry, and how I asked him in January of 2023 if he was certain that he got the right suspect. And he said, no doubt. They are bringing up these news reports to show that there is so much media surrounding Kohberger and that there is absolutely no doubt that he is the suspect. And they also did some scientific data showing that there's been much more viewership, so to speak, of this sort of coverage in Latah County. They also say that this community is different than, say, like a large city like Los Angeles, where we have, major crime all the time. In this community, there was about a 6-week period where people were locking their doors in fear because there was a murderer on the loose. And then once they caught a suspect, there was a sense of relief. So they say in this small town community, this crime has hit them emotionally hard, and therefore it will be very hard to find a jury that could be impartial and not tie some sort of emotion because of this small, tight-knit community. Yeah. Christine?
All right, Dana Griffin. Thank you, Dana. Thanks so much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, 3 men pleading not guilty today in connection to the shooting death of a former General Hospital actor. Remember, back in May, Johnny Wachter walked up to a group of men trying to steal the catalytic converter from his car when one of them pulled a gun and shot him. The suspects are due back in court in October. Number 2, safety officials warning people to immediately throw out a magnetic chess game because it's dangerous for kids. The game, sold on Walmart's website, apparently doesn't comply with U.S. safety regulations, and officials say kids can accidentally swallow the magnets. Officials aren't sure when or how long these games were sold. They say the company is not cooperating. Number 3, police in Arizona are investigating after a Wells Fargo employee was found dead in her cubicle at work. The 60-year-old apparently last swiped in on a Friday morning, but wasn't found until 4 days later. It's not clear how she went unnoticed for so long. Police say preliminary investigations show no obvious signs of foul play. Wells Fargo telling our affiliate, quote, "We are deeply saddened by the tragic loss." They say it's cooperating with police. Number 4, Grand Canyon Hotels shutting down overnight after the main pipeline providing water to the park failed. Officials say they're now turning away tourists during one of the busiest times of the year. Crews are working to repair the damage. Number 5, a new study finding that if you are catching up on sleep on the weekend, it may help your heart health. Researchers found that people who got the most sleep on the weekend were 19% less likely to develop heart disease compared with a group who slept the fewest extra hours those days. I know what I'm doing this weekend. The economy growing faster than initially thought in the second quarter of 2024, up 3%. But that doesn't mean things still aren't a struggle for many Americans. Remember, inflation is still higher than the Fed's 2% target. This comes as new data tonight shows pending home sales hit a near record low, even as mortgage rates are going down. Diana Olick joins me now to help figure what all this out means. Nice to see you. Let's talk about the housing market. What's causing the decline in people signing contracts?
Well, it's really just basically affordability. We've seen home prices rise to a record high this summer, and you also have high mortgage rates. And so people are just kind of sitting on the sidelines in pending home sales, which is a measure of signed contracts. So it's really a great report because it tells you exactly what's happening in the most timely manner. So in July, we know that the number of people out shopping who signed contracts to buy a home was down 5.5% from July to the lowest level since the realtors began tracking this in 2001, with the small exception of a brief moment at the start of the pandemic. But it's a really low level, and again, it just comes down to straight affordability. Christine?
Yeah, so many zip codes. You know, the average income can't afford the average mortgage payment. We know that mortgage rates went down last week, 4 weeks in a row now. I mean, I wonder how low they have to go before current homeowners and home buyers are impressed. I know people who've bought in the last couple of years seem to be refinancing a little bit more, right? Because maybe they bought at 7 or higher and now it's closer to 6. Is there a sweet spot, a number?
I think 5. I think you've got to have a 5 handle on it, because while 7% is not historically the highest we've ever seen, we've seen much higher. In fact, I bought my first home at 9%. But it is considered high for what we remember during the pandemic. So it's come down into the 6.5% range right now. But we really do need to see it in the 5% range. And the realtors actually argued that it was not just affordability that slowed sales in July, but also that people might be waiting for the uncertainty of the presidential elections. I think people are waiting to see if mortgage rates go even lower this fall, which is a very strong possibility because the Fed is expected to lower rates. And while mortgage rates don't exactly follow the Fed's rate, they do follow what the Fed is thinking about the economy. So mortgage rates should come back even more in the fall. And it may be that people are saying, well, it's a little lower now, but what if I could get into that 5% range? And we know that because the home builders who are seeing very strong sales right now, they're seeing those sales because they're able to buy down mortgage rates for their home buyers so they can have that temporary lower rate.
Yeah, lower rates are coming. We just don't know how quickly or how low they'll go, but they are definitely coming. Diana, thank you so much. Nice to see you. When we come back, burned cars, damaged homes, all part of life for people living in the West Bank. What our team found there in the aftermath of about 1,000 reported attacks by Israeli settlers since October 7th. Plus, how Pennsylvania school officials think tens of thousands of honeybees got into the walls of some high school classrooms. That's later in the local. NBC covers hundreds of stories each day, and because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, police in Florida arresting a teacher for felony child abuse after she held a 3-year-old with autism in a headlock during class. Another teacher overheard the child screaming and crying and contacted authorities. The school district says they're investigating and that the teacher is on administrative leave. From our Northeast Bureau, take a look at this scene in Pennsylvania. Swarms of honeybees took over a local high school. Yeah, school officials say they found over 50,000 bees in the walls, forcing students to relocate. They think the bees entered the walls through a small drainage hole and then built a hive inside. Beekeepers are still working to remove them all. And from our Western Bureau, a mega den of hundreds of rattlesnakes. Yeah, that's in Colorado. It's growing as it welcomes new babies at the end of the summer. It's part of a study on rattlesnakes, with researchers and snake experts observing all of these on a live stream. The video is open to the public, too, with hundreds tuning in every day to check on the snakes. To tonight's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching, and tonight it's the war between Israel and Hamas. Today, the World Health Organization reached an agreement with Israel to temporarily pause fighting in Gaza so that polio vaccines can be delivered. It's set to last 3 days in different areas of Gaza. It comes after a baby contracted the first confirmed case of polio there in 25 years. This, as we learn about more fighting in the occupied West Bank, which is seeing a big rise in settler attacks. NBC's Hallie has more.
They came in broad daylight, about a dozen settlers, setting fire to olive trees in the village of Burqa, one of 1,000 documented attacks in the occupied West Bank. Residents say violence from settlements, illegal under international law, has exploded since October 7.
They put the fires sometime in here, other time in here, sometime further to the other areas.
Burqa Mayor Sayal Kanan says the war in Gaza has made a bad situation worse. Why do you think it's increased since October 7th? What is different about this time?
Because they have now a huge excuse for them to do what they plan. I feel Burqa now is subject or planned to put lots of pressure in the citizen to move out of the village.
Yeah. He says men from one of 5 settlements around Burqa also killed sheep, joined by others, torching cars and barns in regular attacks.
In addition to attacking farms and killing livestock, settlers have stormed this village and damaged residents' personal property. They set fire to about 50 cars here in an attack last April.
Israel's far-right government continues to seize more land for settlements considered illegal by the UN and countries, including the U.S. Land deemed essential for a future Palestinian state. Some settlers have directly confronted journalists reporting on the violence, like our crew in December near Hebron.
Stop the camera. Get in the car, now.
Yehuda HaKohen, a settler from Beit El near Ramallah, agreed to speak to us in Jerusalem. He denied witnessing acts of violence, but says the West Bank is Jewish land.
The only method of resistance we figured out so far is to create as many Jewish communities as we can.
So you say you would never leave the West Bank, no matter what?
No, and I'm willing to fight to stay.
For Palestinians, these words mean more displacement, violence, and occupation. Last November, I visited the home of Bilal Saleh's family in the Palestinian village of Asawiya. A street vendor killed by a settler from the nearby settlement of Rehalim. His mother-in-law, Muna, heartbroken then, still can't stop the tears more than half a year later. Every day that passes, our yearning for him increases, she says. On the same rooftop we filmed from last November, Bilal's cousin Mohammed says life has gotten much harder since October 7th. Even harvesting their own land is now off limits.
But that is your land. I mean, it's the village's land.
This is the logic.
Yeah.
This is what logic says. But here we don't have logic. We have power. The power is theirs. And we cannot do anything with our land.
The suspect in Bilal's killing, an off-duty soldier, was briefly detained and later released. The IDF told NBC they will not comment on an ongoing investigation.
Even when Palestinians use the judicial procedures, when they use law and file a case against settlers or against the state in order to provide them protection to go back to their lands and to their homes, the judicial system seems also complicit in postponing these hearings, not pushing the state to provide protection to the families.
Back in Burqa, residents have installed metal guards on their windows after rock-throwing attacks by settlers. In the deserted town square, we only saw a few villagers out in the summer heat, many staying behind closed doors in fear of the next assault. Hallie Garani, NBC News, Burqa in the West Bank.
And our thanks to Hallie Garani for that report. Coming up, what it's like to be in space way longer than expected. Our newsmaker is an astronaut who's lived through it, talking about the ones stuck out there now. Stay with us. So SpaceX launches are on hold after a fire incident during landing. You see the company's unmanned Falcon 9 rocket here yesterday. This is the moment one of the boosters didn't land upright and ended up exploding. No one was hurt, but the FAA has decided to ground any more Falcon 9 launches until it figures out what exactly caused the issue. SpaceX is supposed to be launching a pair of astronauts for NASA late next month. That flight half empty because on the way back, 2 other astronauts stuck on Boeing's Starliner capsule will need to hitch a ride back. Remember, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams have been stuck on the International Space Station since early June after their Boeing spacecraft ran into a lot of problems mid-flight. The mission was initially supposed to only be, 10 days? But now the astronauts will be there until February of next year. Which brings us to tonight's newsmaker, someone who knows a lot about being in space for longer than planned. Frank Rubio holds the record for the longest single-duration spaceflight for a U.S. astronaut. His mission lasted 371 days because of a coolant leak on board. I spoke with Frank Rubio earlier. Frank, as someone who has gone through that kind of thing, what goes through your head when things don't go as planned and you just can't get up and leave on schedule?
Hey, Christine, good afternoon. Actually, the thing that went through my mind was I'm glad we trained for this because the reality is we trained for a whole lot of contingencies. You hope that you don't have to use any of that, but it's not necessarily unforeseen circumstances. And so you're just thankful for your training. You're thankful for your team, and you kind of know that you're ready for it.
NASA has said, many times that the astronauts, they're doing okay and that they've got what they need up there. But is there a mental hurdle here? Is it hard on the astronauts? Is it hard on their families? Or gosh, being in space is so rare and valuable, it's sort of a gift.
Yeah, I think it is important to acknowledge that there are some difficulties with it. Most of it has to do with our loved ones. Most of us are fathers or mothers, husbands, wives, or partners. And it's important to acknowledge that being away from our loved ones is very difficult. But not only is the view fantastic up there, not only are you getting to do something that's so unique, but you're also a very special part of a high-functioning team with a very special mission for the benefit of humanity. And so you try to focus on that because you do have a job to do, you have a mission to finish. And so those things will tend to help you overcome the negative aspects of it. And I think for most of us, while not easy, it's relatively expected that we can focus on the job that is at hand and get it done.
What does the adjustment coming back look like?
Well, that varies for everybody, to be honest. For some people, the vertigo associated with your vestibular system getting adjusted to gravity is pretty significant. And, they'll be walking sideways for up to a week. For some, it takes a day or two. And so for me, the most prominent symptom was probably fatigue. And it took me about 2 months to where I could exert myself to the level that I was used to and start feeling like back to normal.
Wow, really adjusting on reentry, literally as you came back. We mentioned NASA decided it's too risky to bring the astronauts back in Boeing's capsule. Would you fly on the Starliner?
Well, I'm not trained for it, so probably, it's not really a fair question. So I actually flew on a Soyuz spacecraft, and we are assigned to a mission about 18 to 24 months prior to that mission, specifically because we need to train for both ISS tasks, but also for our spacecraft. And so you train for not only how to operate that spacecraft, but for every contingency imaginable. And so, there'd be a very good reason why you wouldn't want to put me in Starliner.
I'm wondering, among your colleagues, is there a feeling that it's a bad look now relying on an entirely different company for a rescue or a return?
In some ways, I think it's an incredibly good look because it proves that the system works, right? We're part of this incredible team. Again, it was a test flight, and so it was certainly not the optimal outcome. But the team came together, did a whole lot of testing, analysis, and ultimately came to a decision that was not an easy one, but one that prioritized crew safety. So for my crewmates and I, kind of the reassurance of seeing firsthand how the team prioritizes crew safety is super important. And I think gives us a level of comfort as we prepare to go to the moon and beyond, knowing that we're going to be doing even riskier things.
NASA spent a lot of time early on in this reassuring everybody that these astronauts weren't stuck in space. And now they're saying, well, okay, they're kind of, actually they are. Why not just from the outset say, yep, they're stuck up there for a while until we figure this out?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by the word. And so I think the reason for that is ultimately one of the things that we have to be on space station is what we call a lifeboat, right? So if things go significantly wrong on station, you have to have the ability to get in your spacecraft and undock from the space station and deorbit and come safely home. And so the fact that they were never without that option, I think is the reason that our team kind of has stuck to the fact that, hey, they weren't stuck up there. They're really just continuing the mission. And so, again, certainly not the optimal outcome, not the expected outcome. But we do have a way of bringing them home if necessary in an emergency scenario. But Butch and Sunny are just really well-trained, positive attitude. And I think they appreciate the fact that they're getting the opportunity to finish the mission and make the sacrifices necessary to kind of do what needs to get done.
Frank, you were up there longer than anybody else. And I'm just curious, was every day, did you savor every day for how rare it was that you were able to be one of the few people to be in space? Or was there monotony? Did it get boring? What was it like?
Yeah, I try to be disciplined with myself about looking out the window for at least 5 minutes every day, because it is easy to get into that routine of work. There's so much work, research, maintenance that needs to get done up there that you could let yourself get into kind of a monotonous routine. And believe it or not, there are people who will go days without looking out the window, not because they don't appreciate the view, but because they're so busy. And so I would just try to carve out a little portion of the day to go make sure I did that. And I think that was one of the keys to kind of maintaining a positive attitude.
Frank Rubio, thank you so much.
All right, Christine, nice to talk to you. Take care.
All right, still to come, the fight to scrap legacy admissions at universities and why some say it won't make admissions more fair. That's next in our American Dream series. As students are back in college this week, there's still a debate over the admissions process that got them into their schools. Just this week, California lawmakers voted to ban legacy admissions at private universities. The governor has until September 30th to sign it into law. Critics argue that it's preferential treatment for wealthier, mostly white students, and they say it's not all that different from affirmative action, which was struck down by the Supreme Court. Rahima Ellis took the issue to students and their families in the latest installment of our American Dream series.
Shockwaves sent through college campuses when the Supreme Court overturned affirmative action in admissions decisions.
A cultural crossroad.
For Jonathan Lamb, a student at Cornell University, the admissions process wasn't easy.
You know, as a child of Vietnamese refugees, I came into the application process with limited resources.
He thinks affirmative action was important for his acceptance to an Ivy League.
I don't think I was solely accepted based off affirmative action. However, affirmative action, I think, in considering not just my race, but also the systemic barriers that I face, I think that helped Cornell at least acknowledge what are the resources that I need to thrive.
After the Supreme Court's decision, Jonathan, along with Cornell's ACLU chapter, started lobbying New York lawmakers, taking aim at another practice they believe is more perverse: legacy admissions.
If the Supreme Court is arguing that no student should receive any preference because of their race in the admissions process, no one should be receiving a admissions consideration simply because their mom and their dad attended that school.
Critics have called legacy admissions unfair, even discriminatory, because the students that benefit typically come from wealthier backgrounds and parents who give money. Roughly 30% of institutions nationwide consider legacy status, according to advocacy group Education Reform Now. While states like Virginia, Colorado, and Maryland have prohibited the practice, leaders in states like California are still working towards an official ban, as is New York State, where over 40% of institutions consider legacy status.
Why should we allow preferences to, increase the opposite of diversity, giving kids who were born with a silver spoon on their mouth more access to opportunity?
One study finds 1 in 6 students at Ivy League schools have parents in the top 1% of income, a group that's overwhelmingly white, with legacy status playing a big part too. But of course, not every Ivy League graduate is white.
If my children also work hard and are qualified to go, then yes, the school should look at them in the same way that they've been looking at the children of alums for generations.
Nick Childs, a Yale University alumnus, wanted his daughter to go to the same school, even though she wouldn't look like the typical student there or the average legacy applicant.
I was hopeful that she'd feel a little bit more accepted there than I did like almost 40 years ago.
As the top schools across the country have gotten more diverse over decades, Nick believes the combination of ending legacy admissions and affirmative action will negatively impact people of color disproportionately. His daughter Mari did end up going to Yale and is now in medical school.
As more Black students have been able to go to that school, more Black legacies are kind of created.
It's not like this turnkey where you end legacy admissions and now we have a fair admissions process.
Rahima joins me now from the campus of MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Rahima, how might a combination of bans on affirmative action and legacy admissions affect diversity on college campuses?
Well, it's affecting it here at MIT. We just spoke to some students, and one of them saying he came here to MIT because he wanted to be in a class that had a lot of diversity, a freshman student, and a white kid. And he found out that now, because of the action taken by the Supreme Court banning affirmative action as a consideration here and across the country in terms of college admissions, The incoming class here at MIT is 47% Asian, only 5% African American, and something like 37% white American. It's a big difference, and it's making a big difference for some students on campus. Here they're saying they hope that they'll be able to do something to make those numbers more reflective of what society at large looks like. But these things that happened at the Supreme Court, it is having an effect on college campuses across this country, Christine.
All right, Rahima, thank you for that reporting. And that's a wrap for this hour. Coverage picks up right now. And we're coming on the air tonight with the first look at Kamala Harris's first major interview as the candidate on top of the Democratic ticket, how she's defending her shifting policies, why she's now saying her values haven't changed. She just wrapped up a rally. We'll have the latest. Then the growing number of people in the Midwest killed by the West Nile virus that's also leaving a teenager paralyzed as cities across the country fight against not one but two deadly, dangerous mosquito-borne illnesses. And the weather woes that could spell even more chaos on the roads and in the skies in the middle of the big holiday rush. Storms causing ground stops right now. Then why home sales are hitting a near record low, even as mortgage rates drop, and what it could mean if you're in the market to buy or sell. Plus, in tonight's original, we'll take you to the West Bank, the drastic steps there people are taking just to stay alive. That's later in the show. Hey, I'm Christine in for Hallie, and tonight we begin with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris battling it out, both holding rallies tonight, both in critical battleground states, and both taking huge swipes at each other. It happens as we get a preview of Kamala Harris's first major interview as the Democratic nominee. CNN releasing this clip in the last hour or so where Dana Bash asks why her positions on key issues have changed. Watch.
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and, by extension, the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
She's also telling CNN she'll appoint a Republican to her cabinet if she's elected in November. Let's bring in Mike Memley, he's traveling with Harris in Georgia. Mike, she just wrapped up the rally where you are in Savannah after taping that interview with Dana at CNN. What was her message at the rally?
I know, Christine, we were just talking. It was loud, it was rowdy, and full house behind me, and it's just as quickly emptied out now. But we did hear the vice president use this rally to try to build on what we heard from her exactly 1 week ago when she accepted the Democratic nomination, talking about the values she brings to this role in the campaign from her experience, especially as Attorney General of California. You heard her talk about that again in that CNN interview. She talked about, in broad strokes, some of the policies she would try to implement if she's elected, especially as it relates to childcare and more housing, making it more affordable for Americans. And then what we saw her build on from the convention was really to deepen that contrast argument, to focus on that Project 2025, which she says represents what Donald Trump would be building off of if he is given another chance to be in the White House. She leaned heavily into what that would mean in terms of people's reproductive rights, their voting rights, what it would mean for the structure of our government. And then she talked about how the immunity decision that we saw from the Supreme Court, giving presidents broad powers to be immune from prosecution for decisions they make in office, would be especially risky for Trump. She said no one who stands behind the seal of the president should have that opportunity, given what especially Donald Trump has done in terms of disrespecting our Constitution.
You know, Mike, this interview, the CNN interview, is this something that actually matters to voters, that moves the needle?
Well, it's really important, one, because she hasn't done many interviews, and so that just raises the stakes for every interview she does at this point going forward. But also because she did not have to earn the nomination as you typically would. She didn't have to put policies before voters to have them decide if that was what they wanted. This is a nomination that obviously came about very quickly and abruptly. And as we heard her lay out her policies here, and she also was in that CNN interview, it's something we've been hearing that voters want her to do and hear more of. Just take a listen to some of the ones we've been talking to here in Savannah.
I think it's very important that she's very explicit about her policies. It gives us an opportunity here in Savannah to hear personally from her about her various policies that may impact us right here in Savannah.
At this point, they kind of feel like the same party. One of them just puts on like a different coat of paint, but like behind the closed doors, it kind of feels like they're just doing the same thing.
Now, personnel is policy sometimes, too. So that's why it's so interesting to hear her say that she might appoint a Republican to her cabinet if elected. Of course, she might have to, depending on what happens in some of those key Senate races, and Republicans could take back the Senate majority.
Mike, you're there in Georgia. It's been decades since we've seen a Democratic nominee come to some of these rural parts of Georgia. We're seeing Harris go eat barbecue, talk to restaurant workers there. They're really making an investment in this state.
Yeah, they absolutely are. She said she's going to be coming back here to coastal Georgia. Her campaign has 50 offices across southern Georgia, and they're going to keep doing events, not just when the candidates themselves are here, but to try to keep engaging with those voters, keep them engaged through Election Day.
Mike Memoli, thanks so much. Amazing how quickly that that venue can just drain of people. On to the next one. Thank you so much. All right, in just the last couple of hours, we learned from Wisconsin officials that 2 people died of West Nile virus in that state, and 1 more is in the hospital. Nearby in Missouri, a teen paralyzed by that virus. 18-year-old John Proctor started feeling sick earlier this month, and after a few trips to the ER, things became more serious. Proctor's parents say they saw their son having stroke-like symptoms, slurred speech, and unable to raise his arms or smile. He was later diagnosed with the virus and is now paralyzed from the neck down and on a ventilator to help him breathe. But doctors say these complications are rare. On the East Coast, cities spraying pesticide treatments to reduce the spread of dangerous mosquito-borne diseases West Nile and EEE. Maura Barrett has been covering this story. She joins me now. Maura, these aren't the typical symptoms with West Nile virus. It's very concerning because this is a young, otherwise healthy boy. What is his family? What are the doctors saying?
Yeah, and the family went through so many iterations of going to the emergency room, going to the doctor weeks upon weeks to get this diagnosis. So it's important to highlight that this is a unique case of West Nile. Typically, doctors point out if you have West Nile virus, it's going to be asymptomatic. Some people will experience flu-like symptoms, so headache, fever, body ache. The real concern is when you see symptoms like his, basically anything that looks stroke-like, if you're having issues neurologically with confusion or dizziness. But I want you to hear from Proctor's dad. Our colleague Maggie Vespa just spoke with him this afternoon, and he talked through kind of what was going through his mind and what his son was experiencing. Take a listen to that interview.
We were woken up to him violently vomiting around 2 o'clock in the morning, and it didn't stop. Fevers started coming, high fevers, 103, 104. Could not break them. It only takes one mosquito to get you.
Just one mosquito, and unfortunately the CDC is pointing out that this week, the last week of August, and next week, the first week of September, is prime time for mosquitoes. It's hot, it's sticky across a large swath of the country, and so especially as you're heading into your Labor Day weekend, if you're going to be spending time outside or camping, officials and doctors really urge people to wear long sleeves, long pants, use bug spray that has DEET in it, because that'll protect against mosquitoes more. There's also certain types of clothes you can get at outdoor stores that have extra mosquito protection against that, and you want to avoid going out during the times of the day when it might be hottest and stickiest. Stay away from standing water. So that's something to consider, especially as across the country, 33 states are reporting cases of West Nile virus, Christine.
So more of the precaution here for the public is not to freak out, but just be diligent about the bug spray, about the long sleeves, because these diseases can be very serious.
Exactly, and this is something that the U.S. has had to handle year over year over the last few decades, but we're seeing an increase in these cases and in mosquito-borne illnesses days, the presence of mosquitoes, because we're seeing an increase of high temperature days, high humidity days. And so you really do want to just be cognizant during this time of year, laying out or doing what I just laid out in terms of bug spray, long sleeves, all of that, because it's going to be hard to avoid the outside. We're in the final days of summer. No one's saying you have to stay inside and be scared scared of this. It is still very rare, just about 180, last year, 180 deaths. And so on the broader scale, that's a small number. And like I mentioned, a large swath of people, majority of people, will be asymptomatic. And so I think it's important to not totally freak everybody out, but to be aware of what happens when you go outside.
All right, Maura Barrett, thank you so much. We're just getting a major update from Donald Trump, talking to our Dasha Burns on abortion rights late today. Listen.
In Florida, the state that you are a resident of, there's an abortion-related amendment on the ballot to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6-week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I'm voting that I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
These new comments from Mr. Trump as he's zeroing in on the Midwest tonight, holding a town hall in Battleground, Wisconsin, his first major event since the controversial incident at Arlington National Cemetery. We're getting new details on that. An Army spokesperson tells NBC News an aide to the former president, quote, abruptly pushed an Arlington Cemetery employee aside when that aide was trying to film content, a TikTok video, inside an area where service members killed in Iraq and Afghanistan are buried. Trump's campaign spokesman says the Army is lying, adding in his words, as someone who was there, this employee was the one who initiated physical contact that was unwarranted and unnecessary. Let's bring in Von Hilliard, who's traveling with the Trump campaign. All right, so let's talk about what we're hearing from the president today, former president. Mr. Trump is also saying he wants to make IVF payments, treatments paid for by the government or insurance companies if elected, and that reproductive rights is something Democrats are hitting his campaign on. How important is that tack for him?
Right. This was a new policy that he revealed to Dasha in that interview, that IVF treatment that he would seek to have his administration. It's not clear how exactly, whether that would be through Congress, but ensure that IVF treatments are covered for families across the country or require private health insurance companies to cover them. And the latest data that we have from HHS back from 2022 is that there were 390,000 cycles, IVF cycles, done about annually in a year. Of course, there's a hefty price tag to that, but Donald Trump making the commitment after Roe v. Wade overturned and intense criticism around his abortion policy or reproductive rights policies, as well as the extent to which IVF services are available to families across the country after the Supreme Court in Alabama made their decision that put in jeopardy IVF treatments for families. And so Donald Trump unveiling this policy here today, but as well as telling Dasha that he would vote for the Florida abortion rights measure, which is going to be on the ballot this November. This is notable because it would codify reproductive rights protections up to 24 weeks in Florida, this particular measure. Of course, he now lives in Palm Beach and is a Florida voter himself. And Donald Trump, ever since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, has said that it should be up to the states, yet he has avoided answering till now how he would vote on that measure, and based off the interview, appears to suggest he would vote in favor of it. Of course, a majority of Americans, a majority of voters are in favor of women's reproductive rights. We have seen that in polling. We saw that in the 2022 midterm elections, and Donald Trump and his campaign are clearly conscious that this is a political issue that the overturning of Roe v. Wade did not leave him on the politically favorable side of.
Yeah. Vaughn, let's talk a little bit about the rhetoric we're hearing from Trump and Vance. Donald Trump spreading sexually crude messaging about Vice President Harris. We're not going to repeat it here, but spreading this on Truth Social. It's a false and sexually explicit lie that's making the rounds of far-right circles. And then just 24 hours ago, we heard J.D. Vance tell Harris she can, and I'm quoting him here, we will repeat this, go to hell. I wonder what this language says about the strategy of the campaign or the pressure the campaign may be feeling here.
Right, Christine, I think it's a good question because I don't think that this is necessarily a campaign strategy, but this is Donald Trump in the most transparent of ways signaling to the country where his head is at, because his campaign, they build out campaign events like the one today where they say that he wants to focus on the economy, inflation, steel manufacturing. But then when you follow him on social media over the last 24 hours, he posted a flurry of posts, a QAnon post, the sexist, degrading post directed towards Kamala Harris and former Secretary Hillary Clinton, but he also put up social media posts of memes calling for the military tribunal for President Obama, as well as the prosecution of Special Counsel Jack Smith and the members of Congress who were on the January 6th Select Committee. And so I think, as we have seen over the years, sometimes the social media account is indicative of where Donald Trump's mind is. Of course, it's a concern of not only people on his campaign, but also the Republican allies that would like to see him in the White House, that it detracts in serious ways from a more focused message on policy that other Republicans would like to see voters hear more so than what appears on his social media account. Christine.
All right. Vaughn Hilliard, thank you so much, Vaughn. All right, we're learning in just the last few minutes that thunderstorms right now are prompting ground stops at 5 U.S. airports like Reagan National and in Philadelphia. This as the Labor Day travel rush is officially underway, with millions of Americans already on the roads and in the skies ahead of the weekend. Experts say lower fuel costs driving a 10% increase in getaways this weekend, with today and tomorrow set to be the busiest days at airports. Overall, 22.8 million seats are booked on flights. Angie Lastman has a full report of what we can expect from the weather. Angie. Priscilla, we're over 4 years out from the pandemic. Inflation's still really nagging people, but this notion of revenge travel, taking trips lost because of COVID and the spending trends of folks not cutting back on their trips, it seems like travel's alive and well. Are we seeing the end of this trend, or is the travel bug here to stay?
I'm with you, Christine. It seems like it's alive and well, and that bug may be here to stay. We are ending a red-hot summer of travel with this Labor Day holiday. And just to give you some context in terms of the numbers that we're seeing, tourists in Europe spent a record $869 billion to date so far this year. And keep in mind, we still have several months to go before the year is out. So that gives you a sense that people are booking those flights and they are spending that money to take travel and to enjoy travel. And I'm being told that airfare rates are still very low as we head into the winter holidays. So I'm sure there are lots of folks out there already eyeing those winter escapes as well. Christine?
We're hearing about record crowds. We know that gas prices are lower today than they were a year ago. So that's fueling the day trips or the driving trips. What's it like where you are?
Yes, all of that. And so here at the airport in Houston, we saw really long lines this morning. So far, it has been smooth sailing, but we do know that there are millions of people taking to the roads, taking to the skies throughout this holiday weekend across the country. We had an opportunity to talk to some travelers here who described their experience leaving on Thursday today. Take a listen to what they had to say.
Good, all good. Very easy so far.
Awesome. Are you expecting that the whole way through?
I hope so. I'll try to be positive about it.
That's right.
It's been good. We have TSA, so it's going to be quick.
So no problem.
No problem.
And so lots of good things going on here, but we have seen some hiccups over the past 24 hours. That severe turbulence that caused that flight to make an emergency landing in Memphis as it was on its way to Chicago. 1 person taken to the hospital, 6 people injured, but thankfully all 182 people who were on board that flight are expected to be okay. There was also some issues overnight in the Denver airport where there was a train that was taking folks between terminals that stopped working, and so we saw massive crowds there. Earlier today in Florida, there was a baggage claim that had to be shut down. And so, the rule of caution in this holiday weekend travel is to leave early and expect delays. But of course, try to have a good time because we are enjoying the end of summer, right, Christine?
Absolutely. Last big weekend of the summer. Priscilla Thompson, thanks so much. All right, I want to bring in Angie now. Angie, we're just hearing about this bad weather causing ground stops at a bunch of airports. What more do we know about how severe this weather is?
Yeah, so Christine, we've been expecting this throughout the day. They're in a couple of spots. We have across parts of the Northeast. We have across parts of the Midwest. And the main thing that we're concerned for are those strong thunderstorms prompting wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, as well as the hail, and a couple of tornadoes. And we've already had reports of that, exactly that, out of portions of the Midwest. We are seeing that our tornado warning has since expired, but notice still a thunderstorm watch in effect effect here for a little while longer as this long line of thunderstorms continues to work its way to the east. This working through parts of Minneapolis, eventually going to work into Wisconsin. You'll notice those thunderstorm warnings that are in effect as well. The wind gusts, the hail, that is what we're looking for as far as the impact. So no surprise, Christine, that we do have some of these delays occurring in some of these more active spots.
Yeah, of course. All right, Angie Lassman, thank you so much. All right, the FBI under fire today after a Justice Department watchdog blasted the Bureau for failing to protect sexually abused children. It's mandatory that the FBI take action immediately, including alerting the other authorities to prevent abuse in these cases. But in this new Inspector General report, there was no evidence that that happened in nearly half the cases they looked at. Improved policies were supposed to be implemented after another damning report 3 years ago that found that agency botched the case against Team USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar, allowing him to prey on victims for months. The FBI responded to the report in a statement reading, "It's committed to maintaining the public's trust by implementing necessary improvements." But in a written response to the audit itself, the Bureau appeared to downplay the findings. They suggested most of it had to do with paperwork violations. That's something the report refutes. NBC's Sarah Fitzpatrick joins me now with more on her reporting on this. And Sarah, walk us through some of the highlights of this report.
So investigators looked at a small sample of 327 cases out of about 4,000 cases that the FBI had opened over a 2-year period that were specifically looking at child sex abuse claims and tips. What they found was shocking. In 42 cases, the investigators themselves reached out to the FBI and said that there were immediate actions that needed to be taken to protect children and prevent crimes. And in almost half the cases they looked at, the FBI failed to alert state and local authorities or take basic investigative steps like following leads. And there are catastrophic consequences to those failures, we know. In the report, there are multiple cases mentioned where children continued to be abused for over a year while the FBI failed to act. In one case, there was a 2-year-old who was sexually abused for almost 2 years before the Bureau took action. And perhaps most disturbingly, there were new additional victims that were first abused after the FBI was informed of the alleged crimes. Those tragedies could have been prevented if the FBI itself had followed the law.
So what is the FBI saying about why some of these problems are still happening?
So a senior FBI official today mentioned that budget cuts may have been a contributing factor, as well as high caseloads for each agent, or even suggesting that some of the incidents were issues with paperwork not being properly documented. But the report is very clear that that last point is not the case. Sources familiar with the report that I spoke to told me that the extent of these failures in just this small sample suggests that this is a systemic issue that has not been prioritized by the FBI. And it's important to note what isn't in this report. There is no discussion of charges. Mandatory reporting laws are the law if you are a mandatory reporter, which FBI agents are, or disciplinary actions for FBI employees who fail to act. And the FBI only said today that the incidents that were raised are under review by the FBI. We've asked if anyone has been disciplined, and we still have not received an answer.
What are lawmakers saying about this? I mean, could we see congressional intervention?
I spoke to members of Congress today who were, quite frankly, stunned at the contents of the report, and they really just could not comprehend how this could still be an issue 8 years after the Nassar case, which was such a, high priority and, we covered extensively, and Congress, held hearings over. The head of the Judiciary Committee said that he does plan to hold a hearing this fall, and we'll have to wait and see if anything happens between now and then. But as of today, there are no indications of anyone losing their jobs over this.
All right, Sarah Fitzpatrick, thank you for bringing us that story so much. Thanks. Coming up, the brand new details we're getting in now about the arrest of a Dancing with the Stars pro in California. Plus, a scary scene in South Korea. What happened when a sinkhole suddenly opened up in the middle of a street? Now to a major hearing today with a judge set to decide whether the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students can get a fair trial in the county where those people died. Bryan Kohberger was at a hearing today. You can see him here. His defense attorneys are requesting the trial be moved 300 miles away from where the murders took place, saying intense media interest and a, quote, mob mentality against him. Now, prosecutors argue the trial shouldn't be moved, saying it would be inconvenient for the families and for witnesses. Kohberger is charged with the murder of 4 University of Idaho students at an off-campus apartment house in November of 2022. Dana Griffin is joining us now. Dana, you've been covering the story. What came out of the court today, and when might the judge make this decision?
Oh, Christine, the court case is still going on as we speak. He could issue a decision today, but it's also likely that he will make his ruling in writing and issue that at a later date. So we are hearing from several expert witnesses who are talking about the surveys they've conducted and looking at the data to show how much coverage of the Kohberger case has been witnessed by people in Latah County. And they say it is almost double what people are witnessing and watching in Ada County, some 300 miles away. They think that there is some sort of bias within this community just because it is so small, about 40,000 residents and a potential jury pool of 25,000. They say because this is such a small knit community, when these murders first occurred, remember there was almost 6 weeks without an arrest. People started locking their doors and there was a lot of fear built up in this community. But once an arrest was made, you had several people saying that they felt a sense of relief. And because of that, that is why the defense says they need to move this case out of Latah County just because there's so much emotion tied to it. Christine?
Yeah, but also brings up issues for the witnesses and families of the victims, right? They might have a lot farther to go.
Exactly. Yeah, especially for one family, Kaylee Gonzalez's parents, they talked to us outside of court, or our producer who was outside of court, and they mentioned how they are already commuting 2 hours just to come to Latah County. If they move it to Ada County, that will be a nearly 5-hour commute each way. Listen to why they want it to stay in this county.
I trust this community to be fair and to go in there without their minds made up, and I don't think that's asking them too much. That's how you see the full 360 of the completion of justice. It started here and it ends here, and we can all just move on.
And that's the important thing. This case has drawn on now for several months, years. This happened. These murders happened back in November 2022. The family says that they just want to get this over with, but they also want the justice served in the county where those gruesome murders occurred. Christine?
How hard is it to actually get a trial like this moved?
It's not easy. According to our senior legal correspondent, Laura Jarrett, she says that these sort of motions almost always fail. But because of this case, and again, what I mentioned earlier about this being such a small, tight-knit community, a very small size of a potential jury pool, they might have success, especially if they can convince the judge that too many people have been tainted by the media coverage. And that's the main argument here, is that too many people have been watching media coverage, not only local, but also on a national stage, and that some of that coverage has been exaggerated, some of it true, but that it just kind of puts them in a situation where this will not present a fair case to Kohberger. And experts agree that it may be best to move it so that you can get through this case without any hiccups. Christine?
Right. Dana Griffin, thank you so much, Dana. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a Dancing with the Stars pro arrested today for domestic violence in California. Artem Chigventev competed in a dozen seasons, actually. According to Variety, he wasn't going to be on the one that's about to start. He and his wife, former pro wrestler Nikki Garcia, just celebrated their wedding anniversary and posted about it online. Officials haven't shared yet who a possible victim might be. His bail is set for $25,000. Number 2, a sinkhole swallowing an SUV in South Korea today and hurting 2 people, according to emergency workers. You can see the white car in an 8-foot deep hole in the street. Officials restricted traffic in the area as workers repaired that damaged road. They're looking into what caused it to open up. Number 3, Grand Canyon hotels shutting down overnight after the main pipeline providing water to the park failed. Officials say they're now turning away tourists during one of the busiest times of the year. Crews are working to repair the damage. And number 4, NBA superstar Steph Curry agreeing to sign a 1-year, $63 million extension with the Golden State Warriors. This means he'll play for the team until the end of the 2026-27 season. It makes him the first NBA player to make at least $60 million in a season. And number 5, a new study finding that if you're catching up on sleep on the weekend, it may help your heart. Researchers found that people who got the most sleep on the weekend were 19% less likely to develop heart disease compared with a group who slept the fewest extra hours those 2 days. All right, the economy growing faster than initially thought in the second quarter this year, growing 3%. But that doesn't mean things aren't still a struggle for many Americans. Remember, inflation is still higher than the Fed's 2% target. And this comes as new data tonight shows pending home sales hit a near record low, even as mortgage rates are starting to come down. And Oleg joins me now to help us figure out what this all means. Let's talk about the housing market. What's causing the decline in people signing contracts?
Well, it's really just basically affordability. We've seen home prices rise to a record high this summer, and you also have high mortgage rates. And so people are just kind of sitting on the sidelines in pending home sales, which is a measure of signed contracts. So it's really a great report because it tells you exactly what's happening in the most timely manner. So in July, we know that the number of people out shopping who signed contracts to buy a home was down 5.5% from July to the lowest level since the realtors began tracking this in 2001, with the small exception of a brief moment at the start of the pandemic. But it's a really low level. And again, it just comes down to straight affordability. Christine?
Yeah, so many zip codes. You know, the average income can't afford the average mortgage payment. We know that mortgage rates went down last week, 4 weeks in a row now. I mean, I wonder how low they have to go before current homeowners and home buyers are impressed. I know people who've bought in the last couple of years seem to be refinancing a little bit more, right? Because maybe they bought at 7 or higher and now it's closer to 6. Is there a sweet spot, a number?
I think 5. I think you've got to have a 5 handle on it, because while 7% is not historically the highest we've ever seen, we've seen much higher. In fact, I bought my first home at 9%. But it is considered high for what we remember during the pandemic. So it's come down into the 6.5% range right now. But we really do need to see it in the 5% range. And the realtors actually argued that it was not just affordability that slowed sales in July, but also that people might be waiting for the uncertainty of the presidential elections. I think people are waiting to see if mortgage rates go even lower this fall, which is a very strong possibility because the Fed is expected to lower rates. And while mortgage rates don't exactly follow the Fed's rate, they do follow what the Fed is thinking about the economy. So mortgage rates should come back even more in the fall. And it may be that people are saying, well, it's a little lower now, but what if I could get into that 5% range? And we know that because the home builders who are seeing very strong sales right now, they're seeing those sales because they're able to buy down mortgage rates for their home buyers so they can have that temporary lower rate.
Yeah, lower rates are coming. We just don't know how quickly or how low they'll go, but they are definitely coming. Diana, thank you so much. Nice to see you. When we come back, we'll take you to the West Bank, where our team sat down for a rare interview. What people there told us about the huge rise in attacks since October 7th. Plus, why millions are being told to evacuate now in Japan. NBC covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to all of them, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. In Japan, at least 3 people are dead, 2 others are hurt after a typhoon hit with torrential rain and strong winds today. Millions were ordered to evacuate as the storm moved over the country. Hundreds of flights now canceled, with some train and postal services suspended too. Out of Ukraine, one of the few U.S.-made F-16 fighter jets supplied to the country has crashed, killing its pilot. The warplane went down while approaching a target during a Russian airstrike. It's the first reported loss of an F-16 in Ukraine since the long-awaited arrival of these planes earlier this month. And from Greece, vacationers at a port were disrupted by an unexpected smell when thousands of dead fish washed up on the coast. Officials say flooding last year pushed freshwater fish into the saltwater sea. Now there's a big cleanup effort because the stench is really hurting local businesses. Commercial activity dropped by 90%, 80% actually in the last few days in this tourism-dependent town. All right, to tonight's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's the war between Israel and Hamas. Today, the World Health Organization reached an agreement with Israel to temporarily pause fighting in Gaza so that polio vaccines can be delivered. It's set to last 3 days in different areas of Gaza, and it comes after a baby contracted the first confirmed case of polio there in 25 years. This as we learn about more fighting in the occupied West Bank, which is also seeing a big rise in settler attacks. NBC's Hallie has more.
They came in broad daylight, about a dozen settlers, setting fire to olive trees in the village of Burqa, one of 1,000 documented attacks in the occupied West Bank. Residents say violence from settlements, illegal under international law, has exploded since October 7.
They put the fires sometime in here, other time in here, sometime further to the other areas.
Burqa Mayor Sayal Kanan says the war in Gaza has made a bad situation worse. Why do you think it's increased since October 7th? What is different about this time?
Because they have now a huge excuse for them to do what they plan. I feel Burqa now is subject or planned to put lots of pressure in the citizens to move out of the village.
Yeah. He says men from one of 5 settlements around Burqa also killed sheep, joined by others, torching cars and barns in regular attacks. In addition to attacking farms and killing livestock, settlers have stormed this village and damaged residents' personal property. They set fire to about 50 cars here in an attack last April. Israel's far-right government continues to seize more land for settlements considered illegal by the UN and countries, including the U.S. Land deemed essential for a future Palestinian state. Some settlers have directly confronted journalists reporting on the violence, like our crew in December near Hebron.
Stop the camera. Get in the car, now.
Yehuda HaKohen, a settler from Beit El near Ramallah, agreed to speak to us in Jerusalem. He denied witnessing acts of violence, but says the West Bank is Jewish land.
The only method of resistance we figured out so far is to create as many Jewish communities as we can.
So you say you would never leave the West Bank, no matter what?
No, and I'm willing to fight to stay.
For Palestinians, these words mean more displacement, violence, and occupation. Last November, I visited the home of Bilal Saleh's family in the Palestinian village of Assawiya. A street vendor killed by a settler from the nearby settlement of Rehalim. His mother-in-law, Muna, heartbroken then, still can't stop the tears more than half a year later. Every day that passes, our yearning for him increases, she says. On the same rooftop we filmed from last November, Bilal's cousin Mohammed says life has gotten much harder since October 7th. Even harvesting their own land is now off limits. But that is your land. I mean, it's the village's land.
This is the logic.
Yeah.
This is what logic says. But here we don't have logic. We have power. The power is theirs. And we cannot do anything with our land.
The suspect in Bilal's killing, an off-duty soldier, was briefly detained and later released. The IDF told NBC they will not comment on an ongoing investigation.
Even when Palestinians use the judicial procedures, when they use law and file a case against settlers or against the state in order to provide them protection to go back to their lands and to their homes, the judicial system seems also complicit in postponing these hearings, not pushing the state to provide protection to the families.
Back in Burqa, residents have installed metal guards on their windows after rock-throwing attacks by settlers. In the deserted town square, we only saw a few villagers out in the summer heat, many staying behind closed doors in fear of the next assault. Hallie Garani, NBC News, Burqa in the West Bank.
And our thanks to Hallie Garani for that report. Coming up, what it's like to be in space way longer than expected. Our newsmaker is an astronaut who's lived through it, talking about the ones stuck out there now. Stay with us. So SpaceX launches are on hold after a fire incident during landing. You see the company's unmanned Falcon 9 rocket here yesterday. This is the moment one of the boosters didn't land upright and ended up exploding. No one was hurt, but the FAA has decided to ground any more Falcon 9 launches until it figures out what exactly caused the issue. SpaceX is supposed to be launching a pair of astronauts for NASA late next month. That flight half empty because on the way back, 2 other astronauts stuck on Boeing's Starliner capsule will need to hitch a ride back. Remember, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams have been stuck on the International Space Station since early June after their Boeing spacecraft ran into a lot of problems mid-flight. The mission was initially supposed to only be, 10 days? But now the astronauts will be there until February of next year. Which brings us to tonight's newsmaker, someone who knows a lot about being in space for longer than planned. Frank Rubio holds the record for the longest single-duration spaceflight for a U.S. astronaut. His mission lasted 371 days because of a coolant leak on board. I spoke with Frank Rubio earlier. Frank, as someone who has gone through that kind of thing, what goes through your head when things don't go as planned and you just can't get up and leave on schedule?
Hey, Christine, good afternoon. Actually, the thing that went through my mind was I'm glad we trained for this because the reality is we trained for a whole lot of contingencies. You hope that you don't have to use any of that, but it's not necessarily unforeseen circumstances. And so you're just thankful for your training. You're thankful for your team, and you kind of know that you're ready for it.
NASA has said, many times that the astronauts, they're doing okay and that they've got what they need up there. But is there a mental hurdle here? Is it hard on the astronauts? Is it hard on their families? Or gosh, being in space is so rare and valuable, it's sort of a gift.
Yeah, I think it is important to acknowledge that there are some difficulties with it. Most of it has to do with our loved ones. Most of us are fathers or mothers, husbands, wives, or partners. And it's important to acknowledge that being away from our loved ones is very difficult. But not only is the view fantastic up there, not only are you getting to do something that's so unique, but you're also a very special part of a high-functioning team with a very special mission for the benefit of humanity. And so you try to focus on that because you do have a job to do, you have a mission to finish, and so those things will tend to help you overcome the negative aspects of it. And I think for most of us, while not easy, it's relatively expected that we can focus on the job that needs at hand and get it done.
What does the adjustment coming back look like?
Well, that varies for everybody, to be honest. For some people, the vertigo associated with your vestibular system getting adjusted to gravity is pretty significant. And, they'll be walking sideways for up to a week. For some, it takes a day or two. And so for me, the most prominent symptom was probably fatigue. And it took me about 2 months to where I could exert myself to the level that I was used to and start feeling like back to normal.
Wow, really adjusting on reentry, literally as you came back. We mentioned NASA decided it's too risky to bring the astronauts back in Boeing's capsule. Would you fly on the Starliner?
Well, I'm not trained for it, so probably, it's not really a fair question. So I actually flew on a Soyuz spacecraft, and we are assigned to a mission about 18 to 24 months prior to that mission, specifically because we need to train for both ISS tasks, but also for our spacecraft. And so you train for not only how to operate that spacecraft, but for every contingency imaginable. And so, there'd be a very good reason why you wouldn't want to put me in Starliner.
I'm wondering, among your colleagues, is there a feeling that it's a bad look now relying on an entirely different company for a rescue or a return?
In some ways, I think it's an incredibly good look because it proves that the system works, right? We're part of this incredible team. Again, it was a test flight, and so it was certainly not the optimal outcome. But the team came together, did a whole lot of testing, analysis, and ultimately came to a decision that was not an easy one, but one that prioritized crew safety. So for my crewmates and I, kind of the reassurance of seeing firsthand how the team prioritizes crew safety is super important. And I think gives us a level of comfort as we prepare to go to the moon and beyond, knowing that we're going to be doing even riskier things.
NASA spent a lot of time early on in this reassuring everybody that these astronauts weren't stuck in space. And now they're saying, well, okay, they're kind of, actually they are. Why not just from the outset say, yep, they're stuck up there for a while until we figure this out?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by the word. And so I think the reason for that is ultimately one of the things that we have to be on space station is what we call a lifeboat, right? So if things go significantly wrong on station, you have to have the ability to get in your spacecraft and undock from the space station and deorbit and come safely home. And so the fact that they were never without that option, I think, is the reason that our team kind of has stuck to the fact that, hey, they weren't stuck up there. They're really just continuing the mission. And so, again, certainly not the optimal outcome, not the expected outcome. But we do have a way of bringing them home if necessary in an emergency scenario. But Butch and Sonny are just really well trained, positive attitude, and I think they appreciate the fact that they're getting the opportunity to finish the mission and make the sacrifices necessary to kind of do what needs to get done.
Frank, you were up there longer than anybody else, and I'm just curious, was every day, I mean, did you savor every day for how rare it was that you were able to be one of the few people to be in space, or was there monotony? Did it get boring? What was it like?
Yeah, I try to be disciplined with myself about looking out the window for at least 5 minutes every day, because it is easy to get into that routine of work. There's so much work, research, maintenance that needs to get done up there that you could let yourself get into kind of a monotonous routine. And believe it or not, there are people who will go days without looking out the window, not because they don't appreciate the view, but because they're so busy. And so I would just try to carve out a little portion of the day to go make sure I did that. And I think that was one of the keys to kind of maintaining a positive attitude.
Frank Rubio, thank you so much.
All right, Christine, nice to talk to you. Take care.
All right, still to come, the fight to scrap legacy admissions at universities and why some say it won't make admissions more fair. That's next in our American Dream series. As students are back in college this week, there's still a debate over the admissions process that got them into their schools. Just this week, California lawmakers voted to ban legacy admissions at private universities. The governor has until September 30th to sign it into law. Critics argue that it's preferential treatment for wealthier, mostly white students, and they say it's not all that different from affirmative action, which was struck down by the Supreme Court. Rahima Ellis took the issue to students and their families in the latest installment of our American Dream series.
Shockwaves sent through college campuses when the Supreme Court overturned affirmative action in admissions decisions.
A cultural crossroad.
For Jonathan Lamb, a student at Cornell University, the admissions process wasn't easy.
You know, as a child of Vietnamese refugees, I came into the application process with limited resources.
He thinks affirmative action was important for his acceptance to an Ivy League.
I don't think I was solely accepted based off affirmative action. However, affirmative action, I think, in considering not just my race, but also the systemic barriers that I face, I think that helped Cornell at least acknowledge what are the resources that I need to thrive.
After the Supreme Court's decision, Jonathan, along with Cornell's ACLU chapter, started lobbying New York lawmakers, taking aim at another practice they believe is more perverse: legacy admissions.
If the Supreme Court is arguing that no student should receive any preference because of their race in the admissions process, no one should be receiving a admissions consideration simply because their mom and their dad attended that school.
Critics have called legacy admissions unfair, even discriminatory, because the students that benefit typically come from wealthier backgrounds and parents who give money. Roughly 30% of institutions nationwide consider legacy status, according to advocacy group Education Reform Now. While states like Virginia, Colorado, and Maryland have prohibited the practice, leaders in states like California are still working towards an official ban, as is New York State, where over 40% of institutions consider legacy status.
Why should we allow preferences to, increase the opposite of diversity, giving kids who were born with a silver spoon on their mouth more access to opportunity?
One study finds 1 in 6 students at Ivy League schools have parents in the top 1% of income, a group that's overwhelmingly white, with legacy status playing a big part too. But of course, not every Ivy League graduate is white.
If my children also work hard and are qualified to go, then yes, the school should look at them in the same way that they've been looking at the children of alums for generations.
Nick Childs, a Yale University alumnus, wanted his daughter to go to the same school, even though she wouldn't look like the typical student there or the average legacy applicant.
I was hopeful that she'd feel a little bit more accepted there than I did like almost 40 years ago.
As the top schools across the country have gotten more diverse over decades, Nick believes the combination of ending legacy admissions and affirmative action will negatively impact people of color disproportionately. His daughter Mari did end up going to Yale and is now in medical school.
As more Black students have been able to go to that school, more Black legacies are kind of created.
It's not like this turnkey where you end legacy admissions and now we have a fair admissions process.
Rahema joins me now from the campus of MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Rahema, how might a combination of bans on affirmative action and legacy admissions affect diversity on college campuses?
Well, it's affecting it here at MIT. We just spoke to some students, and one of them saying he came here to MIT because he wanted to be in a class that had a lot of diversity, a freshman student, a white kid. And he found out that now, because of the action taken by the Supreme Court banning affirmative action as a consideration here and across the country in terms of college admissions, the incoming class here at MIT is 47% Asian, only 5% African American, and something like 37% white American. It's a big difference, and it's making a big difference for some students on campus. Here they're saying they hope that they'll be able to do something to make those numbers more reflective of what society at large looks like. But these things that happened at the Supreme Court, it is having an effect on college campuses across this country, Christine.
All right, Rahema, thank you for that reporting. And that's a wrap for this hour. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.